There was recently a public execution in hip-hop. It wasn't in a rap battle either. On a live SDRM, that is. Have you ever witnessed someone enter a ring believing they are the winner and then exit as like history itself had smacked them? Yes. Jim Jones was that person. And the people who are slapping? Oh, simply Benzino, the guy who still believes he controls the culture from a flip phone, and Nas, also known as Godson, the lyrical killer. It was different last night, though. Jim Jones was toasted, roasted, and folded like soiled clothes in a Bronx laundromat in front of thousands of people. You believed that pre-battles becoming untidy? No. This was a live lyrical genocide. You don't belong here, champ, Nas essentially told Jim during what began as a light-hearted conversation that escalated into a full-fledged rap intervention. And Benzo, you're a featured rapper in a world of classics. That man was merely stoking an already lit fire with gasoline. What actually transpired during that live stream, then? For what reason did Jim Jones end up looking like an unpaid intern? And why, after all these years of stillness, did NS finally snap? Take out your popcorn. It's a horrible one. To understand why this moment seemed like karma dressed in Timberlands finally stomping down the hallway of hip-hop justice, let's take a moment to go back in time before we analyze the complete destruction of Jim Jones that occurred during that now famous live webcast. This is the setup, then. Jim Jones, the self-described street general, Dipset veteran, and the person who somehow made shouting into a microphone seem like culture, felt compelled to comment on Nas, indeed, Nas. The guy who released Illmatic. Before the majority of these up-and-coming rappers were even born, you know. The pen game that gave rise to whole generations of lyricists. That nauseous. What was Jim's action? He made the traditional move. He prodded the bear. As you can see, this whole situation began months earlier when Jim casually questioned Nas' influence on hip-hop today. Yeah, Nas is cool, but is anyone really checking for him these days? He responded, pausing. Let's all pause for a moment to acknowledge the fallacy in that assertion. That small remark, that passive-aggressive attack on a titan of hip-hop. Yes, it was not overlooked. Not by Nas, not by the fans. And definitely not by the hip-hop gods, who reportedly made the decision, all right, let's discipline Jimmy. Let's be fair now. Jim Jones has a history of controversy. Drama is what this man does for a living. The man has been messy, from his personal conflicts to his breakup with Cameron to his moment when he pretended to cry about hip-hop and love. He spent years attempting to show the world that he was more than just Balland, and we haven't even touched on that. However, this is the object. Being revered by legacy is not the same as being relevant through antics. Nas has always been a long-term planner. He's not a ranter. He is not a tantrum-prone person. You can sense it when he speaks because he looks and leans back. The internet exploded when he eventually responded, not with a diss track, but with a composed, cool-headed live stream appearance. Additionally, Nas didn't arrive by herself. To ensure that the message was understood, he was prepared. Unexpected support. You double-check the live button and refresh your screen in shock when you see that type of backup. Benzino comes in. Look, you can say whatever you want about Benzino, and I promise you that we have. However, when this man feels like getting filthy, he comes up with a front-row seat to destruction, notes, and a grudge. The scene was prepared. Thousands of people watched. Twitter is ready to blow up, screen captures are flowing, and comments are flying. Then Nas said something. It's surgical, not boisterous or irate. You know, some people confuse volume with value. Just because you shout doesn't mean you got something to say, he remarked, glancing into the camera that said, boom. On the Jim Jones front, there was immediate quiet. The sound of the Dipset chain striking the floor was almost audible. Let's now discuss what contributed to the brutality of this live stream moment. Nas wasn't simply showing off how good his lyrics were. It was the ease with which he destroyed Jim's whole identity without ever speaking. He fractured point by point. Nas received decades for legacy. Nas has hits and classics. Influence on culture. Nas contributed to the definition of the sound that men like Jim appropriated. Then he gave the night's coldest line, like a genuine surgeon of shade. A hook written by someone else marked the pinnacle of Jim's career. I don't write jingles, I write legacies. Not many. Furthermore, this wasn't even where things became a disaster. No, that was only the first scene. Because Benzino intervened. Just as Nas was leaning back, content with the lyrical open heart surgery he had carried out. I've been holding back on saying this for years, and you could see the smile on his face. There was a lot of energy. Look, I've been in this business long enough to know who's real and who's reality TV, he continued, leaning into the microphone. The comments section erupted at that point. Jones. He's VH1, not hip-hop. Jim was just grilled. Cut the stream. Off. I can't get over this, bro. Since Kim wore pink, this is Dipset's worst defeat. The stream had descended into complete anarchy by this time. As if their lives depended on it, fans were screen filming and Twitter was already calling it the year's worst, and blogs were preparing headlines. However, let's not pretend that this happened suddenly. For some time, the animosity between Jim and Nas has been simmering beneath the surface. In hip-hop, there has always been that silent division. The world's Nauseas versus the Jims, the authors versus the hustlers, the thinkers versus the screamers. Jim Jones has always placed a strong emphasis on street cred, fashion, persona, and viral moments. Feel sick. Building empires while remaining silent until the situation calls for a microphone, he has been in the cut. Jim attempted to retaliate when that moment occurred during a random Tuesday night live stream. It felt more like a history lesson than a disc, as if the teacher had finally stood up in the middle of the class and said, "All right, enough cloning. Let's talk real music, but don't get it twisted." Oh, indeed, he made an effort. He leaped into the stream with his typical vigor, loud, lively, and full of hold up, nah, 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 energy. However, it was too late. The audience has shifted. The story had changed. Additionally, he appeared more like a man attempting to swim in his own ego than a rapper. This concludes the first portion. Because Nas unleashed another verbal bomb that shut Jim down just as he was trying to get better, just as he was trying to defend his reputation and win back the crowd, everything is down. And that is precisely where we start the video. In front of a live audience, Jim Jones was clearly shaken and frantically trying to keep his composure. Ladies and gentlemen. That was when Nas made the decision. He leaned in, cracked his neck, looked into the camera with that forced street tough look, and murmured, "Yo, listen. I respect legends, but don't play with me like I ain't put in work to load again." The live stream chat exploded. L+ ratio plus cooked. One fan commented, "Bro, just got hit with a lyrical insult." Nas calmly responded, "Work? Jim, you had the same mixtape energy for 20 years. It's not evolution, it's repetition. There's a difference." Another said, "It wasn't even battle rap, it was poetic justice served on a live stream platter." And as if that wasn't enough, Nas leaned in once more and said, "Game over." But wait, this is hip-hop. When it rains, it pours. Your entire discography is what I skipped through to get to the feature. Within minutes, yes, minutes, leaked direct messages, industry sources, and anonymous insiders began to surface with stories that turned this whole beef from spicy to downright nuclear. One so-called insider, who we'll call Anonymous A&R, leaked a series of alleged messages between Jim Jones and several executives in which he was essentially pleading for a versus battle against Nas to demonstrate his cultural worth. The messages read, "Let me get Nas. I'll bring the streets. I had the crowd. He's too quiet. I'll shake it up." The source claims that executives abandoned Jim on read. There was no reply, no approval, just silence, which compounded the public Humiliation. He attempted to create a moment and was shunned by the very people he believed would support him, the alleged invoice breakdown. $20,000 for phony reaction videos defending Jim Jones, $15,000 for influencer tweets, $30,000 for streaming boosts for his most recent single, and $35,000 for a crisis management team that, according to insiders, simply told him to log off and pray are just a few of the fabricated reports that surfaced, claiming that he spent over $100,000 on PR, TikTok influencers, and streaming farms in an attempt to increase his relevance after the live stream went viral and against him in an attempt to clean up a digital down he entered on his own. This man allegedly dropped the price of a condo in Midtown. Meanwhile, Nas was already logged off, sipping tea in silence like a retired samurai who had just wiped blood off his sword, and the public's reaction was unforgiving. Meme pages had a buffet, Twitter timelines turned into digital graveyards. And some of the phony, viral tweets read, "Jim Jones was just a guest in a Nazi and still got evicted." That moment when you realized shouting Ballin can't save you from getting ethered. Jim's next mixtape better be called Apology Letter Volume 1. Even celebrities joined in, or at least the fake ones were going to pretend did for the script. Charlemagne the God allegedly said on The Breakfast Club, Jim had a midlife crisis in real time. It was lovely. Nas entered like a god and left like a ghost, never miss a nasty moment, Joe Button. Fake wrote on social media, this is why you stay in your lane. Lyrical assisted suicide was what that was. The most scathing phony answer, however, came from Nas's purported ex-associate, who was apparently a fake, who claimed that Nas didn't even blink. Jim still pays for studio time, and he argues like a man.
Aww.
Let's now discuss Jim's attempted return. Because he wasn't going to accept the loss in silence, as is customary. He reportedly went live from his car the following morning, addressing to his followers directly while wearing sunglasses indoors and using the most overused phrase in hip-hop damage control history. You are all aware of it. There are only lessons, not losses. I'm still outside, bro, you're still outside. The streets are now urging you to return inside and reconsider some of your decisions. The drama didn't end there, though. The fans dug in. Old videos of Jim disparaging other legends, belittling K. Raswan, making fun of Talibka, and once claiming in an old interview that Illmatic was overhyped have come to light. Exaggerated? Oh, you're referring about the record that changed the hip-hop's lyrical terrain. These rediscovered videos fueled the flames and further polarized the people against Jim. For many, this was more than a one-night roast. It was the result of Jim finally making money after years of being looked down upon by the hip-hop scene. In the 48 hours following the live stream, Jim's streams reportedly decreased by 27%, according to purported Spotify sources. In the meanwhile, Nas's. According to reports, streaming increased by 36%. As a nod to the craft of sophisticated destruction, people are going back to see Ether, Stillmatic, and Magic too. The funniest fictitious moment was a meme that went popular, including a Dipset necklace with a for sale sign and the statement, available now, slightly used comes with emotional baggage. A satirical fan website even commented, you came for a king. You left with a crown made of L's. So, where does this leave Jim Jones, musically? Humbled, publicly bruised, and digitally clowned. His supporters are attempting to twist it. The culture has already moved on to Nas, who is sipping his green juice and counting residuals, and his staff is in a frenzy. Because the consequences takes a more severe turn just as Jim makes one more attempt to save his reputation. The aftermath of this live stream becomes even more gruesome on camera, with fictitious business sponsors withdrawing and phony legal threats. Jim Jones logs back on, clearly exhausted. Hoodie Up is trying to give off an air of indifference, but it's not working, and I'm suffering, buddy. He begins with the traditional line for damage control. You guys are exaggerating things. I'm not even bothered. I continue to earn money. What did the culture hear, though? Stop, please, I miss the good old days, and I've sobbed 3 times today. Because the fallout had already started while Jim was out here attempting to minimize it. First, let's talk about the phony industry outrage. Jim's intended presence at a big festival, such as Rap Royalty Reloaded, was discreetly removed off the lineup within 24 hours of the live feed, according to an unidentified executive at a major. Labeled a fake, of course. Why? According to our source, look, nostalgia is why we reserved him. All we received after that live stream was negative publicity. No one wants to watch a meme attempt to make the news. It went beyond festivals. The gym was allegedly negotiating with a phony sneaker brand. According to reports, a bespoke Dipset Kicks collaboration also failed. The cause of the clown emojis and statements that overwhelmed the brand's page with nauseous fans. Anything that has legacy in it should not bear this man's name. Unless you're winning, corporate sponsors dislike scandal. And Jim was losing hard at the moment. Then the legal threats started to circulate. Unverified, certainly fabricated sources claim that Jim's legal team considered sending Nas a marine sandist. For what purpose? It was hazy there. It was over defamation, according to some. Others referred to it as humiliation in public. Jim is suing for damages after catching a lyrical fade on live stream, one viral meme said. Nas was perfectly unconcerned. He didn't even reply. He just posted a picture of a chessboard with no caption, and fans knew exactly what that meant. Meanwhile, Jim's PR team was doing all in their power to change the story. According to reports, one unnamed expert suggested, lean into the loss. Take ownership of it. Recognize yourself. However, Jim took a different tack, doubling down and claiming that the live stream was censored, that Nas wasn't even stating the truth, and that the internet had misrepresented everything. And, voila, error number 57. Reddit threads erupted. Because the fans wouldn't have it any other way, perhaps the worst blow of all came from the hip-hop community itself. Rappers who used to share stages with Jim Jones are now either silent or suddenly riding the Nas train, and fake quotes are starting to appear everywhere. Commentary channels had a field day, and Twitter became a war zone of clips, edits, and breakdowns like Rap CSI. One viral video, Nas violates Jim Jones, frame-by-frame breakdown, received over 2 million views in 3 days. It was evident that the culture had taken sides. Supposedly. Respect to Jim, but sometimes you got to know when to log off and learn. Styles P probably didn't say this, but it sounds like fire. Jim attempted to out-rap Nas like a lawnmower attempting to race a Tesla. The Lupe fiasco was undoubtedly a hoax. Jim writes captions. We gave it a test push, but listeners kept skipping it after the first verse, one insider said, referring to Jim's recent single, Rush Out Post Live Dream as a comeback anthem, which allegedly failed so badly that DSPs removed it from major playlists within 48 hours. Jim wasn't on the winning team. Now, let's talk about the financial repercussions. Jim reportedly spent more than $50,000 trying to promote the song on TikTok, employing influencers, dancers, and even a Nas's catalog saw a boom while the hashtag Jones Revenge trend failed miserably. Spotify reported a fake 41% spike in Nas-related streams, and vinyl sales of Illmatic mysteriously jumped again, including the 18th anniversary reissue. The part that really hurts, though, is that fans began calling for Jim Jones to officially retire, and not in a lighthearted way in a show of mercy. Hashtags such as hashtag respectfully retire Jimmy, hashtag Dipset done, and hashtag Jim Jones versus silence trended for 2 days in a row. Even verified users, including fake verified users, joined in on the trend, and it was suggested that Jim Jones should just give up the mic and drop a cookbook by now. However, live streams, lost in order to reunite Dipset for the culture and regain his relevance. Jim reportedly reached out to Cameron, yes, the same Cameron with whom he has been on and off again, but Cam allegedly ghosted him. According to a fake leak, Cam has been waiting for this man to fall for years. Sponsorships, digital dragging, Jim still had one move left, and it was desperate. What's left is a rapper who poked the wrong legend, a live stream that turned into a digital grave, a fan base divided between laughing at a collapse and defending a legacy, and Nas sitting in silence like a proud sensei who just taught the world a lesson. Don't come for a king unless you're wearing armor made of classics. This was sweet revenge without saying a word, and with that, the curtains close on this video of this saga. So, the dust has settled, or has it? Because after witnessing Jim Jones' transformation into a live stream warning, this wasn't just a diss, this wasn't even a beef, it was a reckoning, a cultural reset, and a moment that reminded everyone that respect is earned. And Nas already cashed in. We saw a man go from being homeless to requesting that the video be removed in less than 48 hours, a speed run to irrelevance if we've ever seen one, but perhaps this was exactly what upcall hip-hop needed. Perhaps now rappers will reconsider their actions before stepping onto a lyrical icon with a 30-year resume and a fan base that still quotes Matic like scripture. The real question is, will he recover or simply fade into meme history? What we do know is that Nas didn't just win, he reminded everyone what true legacy looks like: no drama, no yelling, just cold, calm, quiet destruction. And to be honest, that's more gangster than anything Jim has screamed into a microphone since 2006. Perhaps Jim will finally take a long break from live streaming and launch a podcast called Ballin', but Broken. We're watching, so please leave your thoughts in the comments below.